Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan, and I think Christian did a fantastic job introducing the big picture of RSD. And one keyword I thought caught my attention when he was speaking was the word vision. Now, with that, I thought of a question, just real quick. How many people here have done public speaking before? All right, exactly. Yeah, I see plenty of people here. Now, next question. How many people were nervous right before they did the public speaking? All right, yeah, good. I feel a little better from that. Maybe not nervous at all. Okay, all right, being truthful. And from that, I'd say the spectrum of any technology that aims to revolutionize things. I think we see spectrum with that because people, tend to be anxious of saying, oh, this thing is trying to revolutionize technology. Some people might be anxious, some people might be at the forefront. Like, wow, this is really interesting, I want to be there in the front. So my talk today is on Wiwynn Cluster Manager, and it is built on top of RSD. So my hope is through this talk, you not only learn, but you also see how, or reduce some anxiety similar to right before you do public speaking. So with that, let me continue my presentation. Oh, there's another car horn. Okay, so how will I go about convincing or at least alleviating some of the anxiety you guys might be experiencing when you encounter new technology or in your everyday life, getting out of your comfort zone? So the first thing I will do is an overview of Wiwynn Cluster Manager. Exactly, this is our in-house software, how it works, as well as the architecture, and the features and user interfaces of Wiwynn Cluster Manager, as well as the hardware RSD-enabled products that we have, which span 19-inch and 21-inch building blocks. And finally, we'll go kind of the more business end. We'll look at the roadmap of Wiwynn Cluster Manager, and as well as service, like how would you start and go about using Wiwynn Cluster Manager services. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Okay, so to begin with, let's start with the data center trends. So as you can see here, in traditional IT, we have bare metal services and virtual machines. And through that, you have monitoring and automation. So this is kind of in the 90s, or it's been a while. We're all very familiar, especially if you've been working in the industry for a long time. And that has, after that period, it's come to the cloud computing era. So we have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, all that. And that came with new features such as federation, VM migration, and failover. So, and with that, whether relatively recent is the software-defined data center, where we have software-defined networking, storage, and infrastructure, and we have physical resource, pooling, provisioning, and orchestration. So yeah, that's pretty much standard for software-defined. So this is where we come to at this point, and that I'm excited to discuss more about, and that is composable infrastructure. And that is what Intel rack scale design is really trying to address head-on. So we have composable hardware for the latest kind of hot topics, or actually things that the industry is exploring. We have AI, IoT, 5G, NFV, and edge computing, as Bill introduced in the first talk. And finally, how rack scale design and Wiwynn Cluster Manager on top of that addresses it is disaggregation and composition of nodes. So I can go into the more technical details later on. So we are really overall heading towards these two now, software-defined data center and the composable infrastructure. So let's see how that's done. So the Wiwynn Cluster Manager, our value proposition is we are not just a GUI or GUI on top of rack scale design. We aim to wrap around RSD for more comprehensive use cases, such as deployment, orchestration provisioning. So we basically were trying to expand the disaggregation or pooling features of RSD to even more. So combining these two packages, we can create something more comprehensive and put that all together in one package. As well, we aim to bridge RSD with the legacy world, because RSD is designed to support legacy hardware as well. So in that, we complement hardware layer management by combining RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And here is a GUI, the front page of Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And I'll go into more details behind the pictures. So this is kind of like a cake level. You can think, well, let's go from the bottom, right? Bottom layer of the cake. So we have the hardware, RSD enabled, and the RSD PODM. This is kind of like the head of RSD architecture. And this is where we insert Wiwynn Cluster Manager, where we come in. And on top of that, we have the usual orchestration, RSD-aware workloads. And how the orchestration, we can have various third-party software or open source, such as OpenStack or Canonical products, to communicate with Wiwynn Cluster Manager via the Valence compatible API with Redfish data models. And what Wiwynn Cluster Manager offers specifically is after-node composition services. So we have OS deployment, snapshots, failover migration. So these are very useful for data center admins in their everyday routines if they encounter problems. So access control and also object lock. Christian mentioned multi-tenancy, so we also prevent conflicting instructions from multiple sources. And finally, extended and simplified APIs. So simplified APIs make the scripting easier, automation, and the extended APIs enhance usability. So we try to fit all that into Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And here is how CM integrates with the legacy world. So on the left-hand side, you see the existing DCIM, as well on the right-hand side, Cluster Manager. So how are these two different worlds connected? So the non-RSD pod now, if we hook that up to our Cluster Manager Asset Manager, this manager enables you to automatically discover all the hardware, regardless if you're legacy or you're already RSD-enabled hardware. And that passes to the Cluster Manager head here. Oh, sorry. Okay. And once it passes, you'll be able to discover all your hardware. And once again, let's go back down to the bottom layer. So the RSD-enabled hardware comes in various pools. So we have compute, we have iSCSI, or regular storage, or over Ethernet, and as well as the NVMe SSD pool, which is a cool kind of the main feature attraction of the current iteration of RSD 2.3. And as well as the coming up compute accelerator pool, which I think, it'd be very interesting for everyone in the industry, as this hasn't been seen before. And finally, the software-defined network. So RSD aims to pool all these resources in the future. So your hardware would have, what it means for RSD enabled is the firmware of your BIOS and BMC. They would be compatible with RSD. So iSCSI has various HBA and expander topology mapping that would be supported. And your firmware of your PCIe switches and BMC topology mapping. So if those are tailored to accommodate RSD, you become RSD-enabled hardware. So the overall picture is here, as you can see. Let's start, once again, I love starting at the bottom. No, I was kidding. So we have compute accelerator pool, NVMe pool, and we have the pod manager. And specifically, we'll break down the first layer of how RSD interacts with Cluster Manager. So the Cluster Manager orchestration is here. You can do all your node composition, resource provisioning, OS deployment. And through that Valence compatible API, you can link up to other open source orchestrations and workloads. Now, on the right-hand side here, Customer Manager has a firmware manager, so you can update all the firmware of your hardware via this feature. As well, there's a Customer Manager core. You can do, it tracks your assets, which is basically your hardware. And finally, there's a Customer Manager monitoring. So it has alerts in case there's any sudden error messages. You can actually program your alerts and send an email or perhaps a message to your cell phone via a certain chat application. Say, yo, there's a problem with this node. As well as healing and diagnosis. So we really try to pack all these features into Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And you can have custom APIs to even link to existing DCIM functionality. So we really allow flexibility in Cluster Manager to extend and even be compatible with your existing manageability features. So the key features of Cluster Manager I like to highlight is the asset management. That's really Redfish, Swordfish based and how to track your hardware, as well as the monitoring. And we have specific cool features such as event correlation. So let's say in your BMC log, you get a bunch of high temperatures for a specific chip or near a specific location on the board. Event correlation can, with processing, predict these events are correlated. So instead of just keep spewing the same notifications, they can group it together and say, all right, this problem is related. So you should just attack this at once. Now we have large-scale software deployment, very useful if you want to deploy all your OS in one swoop, your config. And finally, resource pooling, provisioning, and orchestration. So Intel RSD really highlights and addresses the resource pooling. So we have Intel RSD with the latest NVMe over Fabric, which I can show you in a demo video soon. And finally, in the template-based, we have Heat templates, Ansible playbooks for orchestration. And here is a clearer picture of the Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And this is the main page. So the key thing from RSD you can take away from this are pools. So we have a compute pool here, an NVMe pool, and storage pool. So that's basically in your data center, it can list all of that. And from the GUI, you can easily see all the hardware that's manageable and can be pooled. And the next step, if I was introducing RSD along with Wiwynn Cluster Manager, is how to compose a node. Because with this node, you can specify the CPU type, the number of cores, or the memory size, and it'll go into all your assets and find the matching characteristics. So this way, it does that work for you, so you can compose a node that you specify for your workload. And as well, the next step after that is you allocate the required resources to be provisioned. And in this case, RSD 2.3 emphasizes NVMe over Fabric. So you can allocate 2 terabytes specifically of NVMe, and it will allocate exactly that much. Whereas prior, we were probably restricted more by number of NVMe disks. And as well as down the line, we have FPGA and GPU. So I'll show you a quick demo so you can actually see it in action.
Hi, welcome to Wiwynn's introduction of RSD 2.3, where we compose a node with NVMe over Fabric drives. So welcome to the GUI screen of Wiwynn's RSD 2.3, and you can see an overview of all the rack, including the nodes inside. And here we see an overview of the processor, memory, network, and drives information of a particular node. And in this feature, we want to highlight the NVMe over Fabric pool, as you can see here. And in this next step, we'll compose a node in which we can create NVMe pool out of the available NVMe pool capacity we have available. So moving on, let's specify which rack that we want to extract or compose a node from first. So let's just select this item, for example, click on Next. And for capacity here, we can specify for, let's say, 100 gigabytes and do next and finish. So just with a few clicks now, we have our NVMe pool. Okay, so here we want to check the compose node to see if the specifications are what we specified earlier. So we can see here our compose node, the processor, memory, the network, as well as the NVMe details. And let's boot up the system first, because NVMe over Fabric, we should be able to see after the system has booted our desired NVMe. So logging in, we can see that the NVMe drive has been attached, but it's actually 100 gigabytes in capacity. And we could delete the node with a one click, very easy. And so we see back in our NVMe pool, all the storage NVMe has been restored.
So cool. Yeah, that's actually how you can see RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager in tandem, how that goes in action. So now let's take a look at the hardware products that Wiwynn is offering to support or RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager from the ground up. So we have the SV300G3, this is a 19-inch product, 1U, and the SV7220G3, that's our OCP, otherwise you might hear about Tioga Pass. And this is a JBOF, 1U as well, ST300, 24 NVMe hard drives, as well as the OCP kind of version, which would be the ST7200, that's codename Lightning, as well as U.2 or M.2 NVMe drives. And for the storage, we have the SD5110, the 19-inch, and the equivalent, this would be Bryce Canyon for the OCP, SD7000G2. And now we have interesting products. We have the XC200, a 19-inch GPU accelerator, and the SV7400G3, which you can actually see in the back over there. We have these products lined up in the back, so anytime we can go back and check it out. And for SDN, we allow it to be customer definable, so you can pair up your switches how you want. So now that you've really seen from the ground up how RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager kind of works, we want to show you a global level where you can actually start testing, or where to even begin. So we have POC sites, the first one beginning in Taipei, Taiwan, and you'll be able to log in. And the next one is in Tokyo, Japan. And the most relevant one for everyone here would be right in Facebook Lab in Menlo Park. So we have RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager on there that you are able to, you can come talk to us. We're able to log in and trial. And finally, we also have one in our Czech Republic manufacturing site. So we have really a total of 4 POC sites. So now coming down to the roadmap, give you an idea of how Cluster Manager is going to develop or evolve over down the line, as well as Intel RSD. So previously, while Intel RSD was in version 2.2, it offered the real key feature of telemetry, where you can really see CPU, memory, I/O utilization. Now the current iteration is version 2.3, so we have NVMe pooling over Ethernet, and which you saw in the demo. Now, along with that, we have the accommodating Cluster Manager features, such as a more configurable dashboard. We're going to enhance the visual views of assets because user experience, the software is very important. And enhanced event correlation, which I mentioned was clustering a group of related events, so it's not just spamming a bunch of events that are just disaggregated and you don't really know what the meaning is. And as well as a heat map. And from this, what it actually means is also it'll give you a picture view of your utilization, like your CPU, your memory, kind of where the utilization is highest in a physical location in your data center. So this feature is in development, but it'll be able to see physically located in your data center area which nodes specifically are having a high load. And as well as more alerting methods, kind of email or instantaneous updates to your line or WhatsApp here. Sorry, too used to the Asian line chat. And then as well as auto-healing framework, which means if there's any problems, we have scripts, or we allow you to customize your script so it auto-heals the problems that you maybe routinely encounter. And finally, for integration, we have OpenStack on top, as well as OpenStack BMOS, and then Kubernetes, the containers, and as well as MVF, Open Daylight ON OS. So we're working on pairing that on top of Wiwynn Cluster Manager for your orchestration. And finally, next year for 2019, we're going to have more advanced diagnosis and power and cooling optimization features. So that is our general Cluster Manager roadmap. So yeah, it should be exciting to see as it evolves. And we actually demonstrated this prototype at this year's OCP Summit. And I'm sure we'll have more new surprises for the upcoming ones. So stay tuned. And here is coming down to this point, like you've seen everything. Now the real question is, how do we even begin? How do we even start to evaluate? So starting from here at the bottom, so we can, like I said, you can experience at our labs. The most relevant for everyone would be the Facebook lab, but we can also have one in headquarters or our Czech site in Brno. Or the next step is you're interested in obtaining a POC rack. So we allow a minimal configuration of 3 server nodes, 1 JBOF, and 1 storage server. So that is minimum configuration, allows you to explore all the features of the current RSD along with Wiwynn Cluster Manager. And with that, we also allow you to have free license and on-site POC and training. And finally, the third kind of method of how you can start is if you have existing hardware and you just want to purchase RSD and then Wiwynn Cluster Manager software, you don't have to spend any hardware costs. We can allow Wiwynn Engineer on-site support to integrate RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager on your hardware. And at the end, we can provide a POC closing report, of what we've encountered, how we customize it to fit your needs. So it wraps up that whole software integration for you. So we have, like I said, 3 methods of how you can start exploring RSD, the latest versions of RSD and Wiwynn Cluster Manager software. And finally, to learn more, you can just specifically, without face-to-face, you can just go right and read these white papers or data sheets, as well as have several YouTube links. And of course, you can email us at techsupport@wiwynn.com and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So so in conclusion, the Cluster Manager is a very exciting pairing with RSD. So I hope I alleviated some of this anxiety or out of your comfort zone. And I thought of not just rack scale design, but as a vision, as Christian said, rack scale dreams. So if you can apply that to your everyday life, and life is still here. So keep dreaming. Thank you.